What's up, Starcraft fans? Today we're doing the tier list for Specter of Death on Part and Parcel. Brian, let's hear the mutation.
Part and Parcel is the map where we have to break boxes to collect parts. When we get enough, General Davis opens the hybrid and then dies to it. We then have to destroy the hybrids for her before running out of time to win the game. Void Reanimators spawn from enemy buildings and revive fallen enemies. All enemy units, including the Reanimators, are cloaked.
Alright, we have Edwin home the call with us today. How are you today, Edwin home?
I'm doing pretty well.
Nice. That makes one of us. I really tried looking for literally anyone who can do it, but I'm leaving tomorrow. And I need this done. Otherwise there will not be a video. So I guess true to the mutation, our guests also have We Move Unseen activated. No one is quite visible right now. Anyway, how do we rank the commanders this week?
Well, there's two questions. Can you see invisible units specifically? And can you defend against the Void Reanimators? So having a good combination of both makes you pretty good. Having only one makes you okay, and having neither makes you pretty bad. So, yeah.
Agreed. For me, the defense part is more important. I also think that detection and defense are the two big Ds here. The two big double Ds. The more important for me is the defense, because the detection, all commanders have detection at some point, whether they're good or bad. Some will get them earlier, some will have better forms of detection, such as a hero-based detection. Others will have a cooldown-based detection, or something that's easily snipeable. So that's where I'm making the distinction. But it's only 1 point instead of 2 points for defense, because some commanders really have really bad defense, and something they don't really want to do unless absolutely necessary. With that, let's begin. Abathur, where do we have him?
Abathur is good once you get your Overseers up, but he is going to be slowed down in the early game a little bit by We Move Unseen. You can still snipe units with Toxic Nets, so as long as you're on top of that, you can kind of still get your Brutalisk a little bit slower probably, but still at a reasonable time, even with not being able to see them. If you know the map well enough to do the Brutalisk farming, then you'll be fine. Once he's got those out, he's in a pretty good position. He has Deep Tunnel with the Brutalisks, so you can kind of just jump anywhere you need to deal with the Void Reanimators. And he's very good at this map in general, and he has not great detection in terms of staying alive with Overseers, but as long as you just don't F2, and you click your Overseers onto like your Leviathans and siege some up at home, I think his Overseers can siege, then you should be fine. You shouldn't lose too many of them. And they're cheap enough that you can have like 8 of them if you're really that worried about it. So I had him in S tier. I was questioning between A and S, but I had him in S.
I had Abathur in A tier, not quite S for me, because yes, he does have everything he needs, but he kind of needs to work as compared to some of the guys I have in S tier. For me, I don't even need a fast brutal. If you can get it, it's great. It'll make life really fast for you. But if you don't, if you're not quite a We Move Unseen farming level type of player, you can still go for early swarm hosts and just get biomass. Switch off the Brutalisk option if you don't like it. Switch it on if you do like it, and then just wait until you get enough biomass that you can get your first roach to a Brutalisk, and then just for the rest of them you can just make swarm hosts, and life will be okay. That's really solid, but your Overseers are still a target, especially if your army is ground-based. That's why I can only put them in S tier, or rather A tier. Do you have a final argument for S tier?
Well, if you're only not putting them in S because of Overseers, I personally never really have issues with losing too many of them. Like I said, you should have an air army because you should have your Leviathans. I don't know why you wouldn't. They're pretty good. And as soon as you have the Leviathans, if you just move command your Overseers onto the Leviathans, they almost never die. And I usually only run with 1, but you could literally just do like 4 or 5. And as long as you're keeping an eye on them, I think they'd be fine. But I do think he's definitely a lot more involved than most of the other really strong commanders. So I'm fine with A tier on that.
Okay. I guess we're both fine with A tier. So that's where he goes. Oh, hold on. Yeah, A tier is where Abathur goes. Prestige wise, second one, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah. As to getting air units, I think that will slow him, especially for running second prestige. I think that will slow him down enough that the time may start to become an issue, especially if you need biomass to get your ultimate evolutions. That's why I said you can run Sormos just fine with second prestige, because you don't need to farm biomass with them. Well, you do want biomass, but you don't need to farm because Sarmos on their own are still useful. Roaches, not so much. Anyway,
That's
well,
true. I don't think you're worried about the overseer getting sniped until later on, though. So it's not like you need to like do the, layer at 2 minutes, rushing spire kind of leviathans. But if you get them by 10 minutes, then they're still hitting around the time where you're actually worried about overseers getting sniped, I think.
that's true. That's fair. Anyway, moving on. Alarak for me is B tier. He does have the mothership to be called downable. He does have the Havocs, which themselves are cloaked. So with Alarak and the mothership tanking in front, I guess you can keep them alive for long. The reason he doesn't quite get to A for me is because the defense is a little suspect. Yes, you can have Wrathwalkers and Cannons and a Havoc back home, but sometimes the Void Reanimators can stand far back enough that they can respawn things like Swarm Hosts and Dude Lords and Carriers that you'll constantly be pressured to have damage output, and then your army's constantly getting chipped at. Yes, you can just send the mothership on a mission to snipe the boxes, but especially if you take the expansion, you'll have three fronts to defend. If you don't have to take, if you don't take the expansion, you'll be able to hold on one ramp. By the way, we have a base assumption here. The base assumption is you don't have to solo, but you might have to help defend your allies' ramp at some point. That's our base assumption. You're not soloing, but you're probably doing most of the work. Anyway, yeah, I put him in B because yes, it'll still hold your Wrathwalkers, your Havocs, your Supplicants will still hold it at home. It's just a little sketchier than someone like Abathur with Sormos that spawn infinite stuff. What do you think?
Yeah, I think B is fine. I had him in C because Havocs are some of the worst detection that you can have in the game in my experience, but I think
Justifiable.
B is probably fine. Yeah, there's definitely worse detection, but he's probably in the top 3 to 5 worst detecting heroes in the entire game. So
Ooh,
I think B is fine.
we can rank them later on. That'd be a fun exercise. But yes, let's put
Yeah.
Alarak in B tier. By the way, for the record, I don't have much of a problem with C tier if you can defend it. It's just that we just happen to agree on B for now. Maybe we can re-rank later once we see where everyone else lies. Prestige wise, still third one, right?
Yeah, I mean, you still want to get the mothership.
Yes. Let's move on to Arcturus. Where do we have him?
Arcturus is very good. He's got ESOs that you can technically use if you want to. They're lame, but you can use them to get all of the parts, generally speaking, and then you don't have to actually like move out of your base, so you can just focus on defending and occasionally moving the ESOs, which is nice. His main army's pretty good, and you typically have detection with your army at all times anyways, because you want to be indoctrinating them at every opportunity, so detection isn't really much of a concern with Arcturus. Getting it out early enough, you might have to, have your build be tight and actually get it out, but you can also just build a turret for the first attack wave if you want to do that. So I had him in S tier. I think he's pretty good this week.
Ooh. I had Arcturus in A tier. Maybe there's an argument for S. I think he does have good detection. He does have long range shooting, so he can just defend while attacking. He has siege tanks, he has bunkers. I just think he's a bit more work than the other guys I put in S tier. Specifically when there are, I guess it's not even a real point. When there are boxes that are slightly too far to reach, technically you can just drop vampires on top of those things and destroy the boxes and steal the parts. My main pain point with Arcturus is you do have to fight the hybrid at some point, and the Earth Splitters sometimes can't reach or quite see where the hybrid is since it's cloaked and stuff. So The concern for me is having to, of course, number one, build the Earth Splitters. Number two, figure out where the Reanimators are coming from. Because, yes, you can have. The bunkers are really good with siege tanks behind them, but you have to split your supply between offense, the Earth Splitters, and defense, bunkers and tanks. So there could be, yeah. That's why I only have an A rather than S, because there's a bit of technicality involved rather than just, oh, you just do this and you win. As Arcturus, do you think S is better though? What do you think?
Well, I think he's not going to have enough problems for me to put him in A realistically because, yes, there are some easier S's, but he's still like you can wipe the floor with the mutation in my mind just because other people can wipe it a little harder. Well, that's what double S is for, or whatever, right? Um, I think it shouldn't be too much of a problem with the reanimators because you only have to leave like one, maybe two bunkers at each ramp. I'm not even sure you need the siege tanks because you do have 10 or so earth splitters. And while they might not be able to reach the far boxes, they 100%, if you're like, oh, I'm having a little bit of trouble at home, you can just plop the earth splitters down wherever the units are spawning in and hitting your ramp, and they're gone, and so is the reanimator pretty quickly. Especially with bunker repair, like with some of the Protoss commanders, you don't necessarily have the ability to repair your static defense, but with a lot of the Terrans, obviously, you can just repair bunkers and they'll hold for a long time. And I don't think he's going to have too much trouble with just you just take your main army, you A move at the hybrid. The hybrid itself isn't particularly tougher than it normally would be as long as you keep your detection alive, which isn't too much of a problem with Arcturus. You can even have a few SCVs along if you want to repair just in case. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it should be too much of a problem. You also have top bars, right? You can call in a
Yes,
Max Dogs of War on the hybrid. You can call in Nuclear Annihilation on the
you
hybrid,
still need
and
detection.
you should be able to do that for free. You do still need detection. I'm just saying in tandem with your army. So it's not like you need your
Wait,
full
so
army there to
you
be able to take
you
down a hybrid.
so you do make an army. So you have to split your supply between, of course, the economy, defense, manning Earth Splitters, and the army. That
Well, the army
yeah.
is vampires, which is the same thing as what's manning defense and the Earth Splitters. So realistically, I don't think you need that many Earth Splitters to get the parts, really. Like you need like 5 to 10 probably, which is a decent amount of vampires. That's like 40 vamps at most. But you can also, when you're actually fighting the hybrid, dump the vampires out of the Earth Splitters. They still shoot, they're just going to shoot slower, but you only have to worry about using them until the hybrid's dead. Go A move the hybrid real quick and then come back and set up your earth splitters again. Or not, obviously you're not salvaging them, but put units back into them.
Okay. Not too averse to S personally. I don't personally have an S, but S is not too far of a stretch for me. So I guess he goes in S. Prestige wise, third one, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
All right. Moving on. Artanis. Where do we have him? Oh wait, it's my turn. Yeah, Artanis for me is C, because he does have detection, but he doesn't have the defense. So that's only one checkbox. And for me, defense is more important. The observers are really great, but yes, he does need to invest a significant army at home. Which, even if you invest a significant army at home, it can still get overwhelmed if you don't right click down the reanimators in a timely fashion. And dragoons, yeah, they're not amazing. They can still lose against Zerg based compositions or Zergling based compositions. So you still need the Zealots to be there. And yes, you can fly an observer and just warp in Zealots to clear the boxes, but that still costs money, more money than the options of other commanders. And defense, yes, you kind of need to pray that the reanimators don't hide just behind the vision range of your detector or your observer. That's why it's only C for me. What do you think, though?
Yeah, I think, the observers would be enough with certain other commanders' armies, but you combine the observers being his only real detection for at home with the fact that his army is not as good, and it's like, well, probably not a great time for you. So I had him in C tier as well.
Yeah, I'm a C tier. Prestige wise, third one, right?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Moving on, Dehaka. Where do you have him?
Dehaka is struggling in the early game for detection, so you can't really buff up Dehaka himself. Once you get to your pack leaders and primal worms, especially the greater primal worms, you'll have enough detection to get things done, generally speaking, especially if you have, well, you'll eventually get Dehaka up to level 5, and then detection becomes not really an issue from there. That is, though, a significant portion of the game that you're dealing with those issues, so it kind of kept him out of S for me. I still think he's probably A tier because you can just have a standing army with some worms at home and then Dehaka out clearing in the later stages, but getting there is going to be a bit tougher. So I had him an A.
Agreed. I also had him an A. Defense, Impalers are fine, but you need more of them, especially with Reanimators around, since they will want to destroy the stuff. And against air, you do need some form of anti-air tone, maybe multiple worms, just so you don't get overwhelmed. And even you'll have to rebuild. So he's fine. He can do it. He's not quite S. That's why I only have an A. Prestige-wise, second one, right? Or do you
Yeah, I
think?
think still second.
All right. Unanimous so far. Dehaka goes in A tier. Moving on, Fenix for me, also C. He kind of also has. He's basically Artanis, but even better offense and even worse defense. Is that possible? Unless you go first prestige. You can totally go first prestige and just spend your entire army at home while while Fenix uses his many forms to just burst down the boxes and then switch back home so he doesn't get his suits fully destroyed. Or you can have the rest of your army at home and have regular strength Caldalis just right click down the boxes. It'll probably still work. You'll probably want to have full mastery in unit or champion life and shields so you can have the Kaldi thing survive long enough to destroy the boxes without fully draining your economy. I think for Phoenix, you also want to stay on one base because your army thrives on density rather than being spread out. What do you think?
Yeah, I had him in B tier because I do think you just don't go P2 and then you have your army at home and you clear with Caldalis and or Phoenix suits as well. You do have observers, so you don't need to rely on the Arbiter suit, so that lets you go for P1. If you wanted to go a different prestige, you do then get Arbiter suit anytime you want as detection, but I don't think any of the other prestiges do well enough. But I had him in B because I think he's a little bit better than Artanis for that reason.
You think his defense is closer to Alarak's than is Artanis's?
I think so, because you still get cannons as Phoenix, don't you?
Yes. You
So you
also
can
get
have cannons at
cannons.
home. You have, I mean, if you want to basically have your own version of the Reanimators, you can just go mass carrier at home over time, slowly, obviously, if you're only
Ooh.
on one base, but you just have an infinite amount of interceptors that build for free. And no matter how many units show up at your door, you're probably going to be able to hold them.
I don't
I think he's,
recommend
yeah, more than Alarak. I don't necessarily recommend it, but you could go something like that.
I don't recommend carriers because yes, the mineral wise they're free, but it takes a long time to replenish interceptors. It's faster to build a new carrier than it is to replenish the interceptors of an existing carrier. And
That's
the
true.
new carrier takes a long time to build. Anyway, yeah, okay, I'm not too averse to B, so yeah, let's put Phoenix in B. Prestige wise, first one.
Yeah, I'd say so. You could go P0 as well, I guess, but I think P1's probably better here.
All right, no prestige or first prestige, both are fine. Han and Horner, where do you have them?
Han and Horner is obviously able to basically ignore half the map by just bombing platforming the boxes, which kills very few units usually as well. So you're not actually having a ton of reanimators flood in from outside of the attack waves. So that part is good for them. Everything else is less good. Their detection is some of the worst in the game usually. You can make missile turrets at home, but you don't have bunkers. But you can basically just sit at home and defend while your bombing platforms go to work. So for that reason, I had them a little higher than I might otherwise. I had them in B tier.
Oh, no, I had them in E tier. I think the defense is really suspect, even if you spend your entire supply and your entire economy on just getting units, because the detection range of the Raven isn't that far. It is not uncommon just to have it sniped, and just to have the Reanimator sit far enough that you can't really see where it is unless you really know what its shape is. And when there are things going on outside that, and add to the fact that you actually have to fight the hybrid. If your entire army is at home and you're in one base, you won't have enough firepower to destroy the hybrid. It just does not work for Hot and Horror. Theoretically, you can just spend your entire money on defense, and the air strikers, I don't think it's robust enough to hold even your own ramp, especially once the Reanimators are just barely out of vision range of the Ravens. I can move it up to D, but I don't think B is what I would describe them. I think they're definitely worse. I think they're at least a tier worse than Artanis, because Artanis at least has Dragoons and Shield Overcharge. And their observers see further, so at least you can always have far enough vision range to see the Reanimators. Not so much for Hot and Horner. What do you think?
That's interesting, because I think maybe, I guess, but with Artanis, you do have to defend at home, and you still have to clear the map by moving out and clearing the map would be my one pushback on that. I'm fine with D tier, I guess. I had them between B and C more so, but I guess if you think they're that bad, then that's fine. I can go D tier.
I agree that Artanis has to go out, but he doesn't have to send an army out. Like with Hot and Horner, he can just fly. Well, not with Hot and Horner, but he can just fly an observer out, and then just warp a couple of Zealots to clear boxes, and then they can just do whatever they want, and before they teleport back to the void, so to speak. So technically, you don't need to send your army out. Just a couple of Zealots to right-click boxes, and then they are free to return to the Kala, so to speak. But yes, Hot and Horner, D tier. Okay, that's a compromise for both of us. More so for you, actually. You had him in B. My Donnie. Ah. Karax for me, S tier, because he has cannons, he has the aforementioned observers, he has Spear of Adun, and he can just delay the game until he has actual army. Or he can even just clear the way to the hybrid and then just make cannons. Or you can make cannons just slightly further than where the hybrid fight, and then bait the hybrid to the cannons with like a legionnaire or two. So S tier.
Yeah, it's not even really hard to pre-clear where the hybrid are and then just have cannons. It'll spawn into a world of pain, and yeah, it's a pretty easy time. So I had him in S tier as well. Cannons
S
good,
tier.
Spear of Adun good.
Cannons are good. Moving Karax to S tier. Moving on, Kerrigan. Where do we have him?
Kerrigan has Omega Worms for detection, which is pretty solid. It's also good mobility for the Reanimators. It's also good delay for the Reanimators. Typically, you're going to have enemies start hitting your Omega Worms before they start hitting your base, which is nice. She doesn't have the best home defense, but Lurkers will do pretty well with some Hydralisks behind it as long as you don't get too many air units and you're kind of keeping an eye to make sure you're not dying to invisible units. Then I don't think it'll be too much of a struggle. And then Kerrigan herself can kind of just clear the map and fight the hybrid with maybe a little bit of help from an army at some point. So I had her in A tier.
Same. I had Kerrigan in A tier. Her strategy is have lurkers in front of Omega Worms because they're cloaked. And instead of Hydralisks, you want your gas to go to lurkers and Omega Worms. So my anti-air will just be spore crawlers. You will not be wanting for minerals as Kerrigan. You just need to have spore crawlers to destroy whatever it is that is air that goes, unless of course it's an attack wave that's air based, in which case you may need a mobilization wave to destroy them. And yeah, the air thing is also the reason why she doesn't quite hit S tier, but the air waves on this map don't really get that terrifying. I don't think. Maybe they do. I'll have to recheck that at some point. But I don't think they get terrifying enough to move her down to B tier. A tier is not S, but I think it's still pretty good because she can just clear enemies with immobilization wave and just walk in, take the boxes. Or, if you still have enough minerals after that, you can also make Zerglings to just go to the boxes. That'll also work. A tier. Prestige-wise, no prestige. or third?
Yeah, probably. You could go third as well. I think Kerrigan is kind of nice to have the extra mobility, so you can kind of just jump past enemies and clear boxes and not even worry about fighting them.
Definitely agree. I like having the leaping strike and the psionic shift to just move around as Kerrigan while also dealing damage. Anyway, Kerrigan goes in A tier. Not so much of an issue. Nova is blonder this week, in my opinion. In my humble opinion. I put her in S tier because she can just go third prestige, stick her out on one base, have siege tanks and liberators and Robins at home. Yes, they will not have far enough vision range to destroy the Reanimators, but they do have the firepower to destroy anything it revives. You can just have Goliaths and turrets in the rear for anti-air. And I think it'll be just fine with Nova just walking out of the map and right-clicking the boxes. When it comes time to fight the hybrid, you don't need a lot of Liberators. Maybe 4 Liberators are enough to eventually destroy the hybrid if you also have Nuke and Airstriker support. Which, by the way, is pretty good. Airstrike, speaking of Airstrike, it is pretty good at deleting attack waves if you know where they spawn from. That's why she's S for me. What do you think?
Yeah, she dyed her roots this week. She's very blonde and she's very powerful. And Liberators and Ravens and Goliaths and even some Hellbats if you wanted, because you're probably going to have minerals, are all pretty good. So yeah, had her in S tier as well.
S tier for Nova. Moving on. Raynor. Ooh. He does have bunkers, but he needs the money because he will have to scan every time he goes out. He will have to scan when he wants to right click down the reanimators because his bio and his tanks don't quite have enough firepower like Nova's army to just delete the revived stuff as it spawns. He also doesn't have defensive drone. He also doesn't have a hero that I guess the Hyperion technically counts. You can send it out, collect parts, but it's not a constant presence the same way Nova is. And you don't have a big nuke. And you don't have an airstrike to fall back on. Well, Banshee airstrike, yes, but it's it's a long cooldown, so you don't really have enough time to just clear everything. I guess you can send individual Marines to clear the bosses, but sometimes it takes more than that because they get shot down so quickly. I don't think Raynor is good. In fact, I put him down in D tier. What do you think?
Yeah, he's pretty bad. The detection on the offense is horrendous. It's not maybe it's arguably some of the worst in the game. Might be the worst in the game because you're actively giving up on large portions of your army in order to scan. So it's kind of a pain. And yeah, I guess maybe you make like a Banshee hit squad and you can hit the boxes around the outside edge of the map that way without actually having to fight. But beyond that, it's going to be tough. So I had him in D tier as well.
Unanimous D tier. No prestige recommendation because D tier is considered bad. Someone who's not D tier, I think Stetboy is an S tier because he has detection that's hero based, and you don't actually need any other unit to go with Super Gary. He just do everything on his own. You can spend your entire basically a Nova situation, except you can also help your ally keep alive with the green zone, and you can go to where you need to go with the Gary zone with blue zone, and yeah, your army is enough with the green zone. Zerglings will tank everything, while lurkers or hydralisks stand behind them to mow down anything that the reanimator revives. Detection at home can be a little suspect. His overseers don't have enough vision range to see the reanimators all the time, so you'll have to really have an active presence on building defensive stuff like Zerglings, Lurkers, Hydralisks, Spores, just to make sure they don't get overrun while Gary is out destroying the map. But that's S tier for me. What do you think?
Yeah, he's really strong this week. The overseers would be weaker if not for the fact that, unlike Abathur, for example, your overseers heal at insane rates basically the entire game because they're always in a green zone. So you don't have to worry too much about them getting sniped as long as you're actually actively watching your army occasionally, which shouldn't be too hard. You can basically just A move Gary and check in on your army anytime you want. So it's a pretty easy time for him. I had him in S tier.
All right, unanimous S tier. Second prestige. Moving on, Stukov. Where do we have him?
Stukov is not quite S tier for me. I had him in A because the setup time is a little annoying. The defense can be a little troublesome because the units are invisible. If you're really on top of things with having some Brood Queens, you can just drop detection on whatever units are closest to where the Reanimators are coming from and then move over to them. But it's a bit more of a pain, a bit more involved, as we were saying with some of the others, a la Abathur maybe, than it would be for, say, Karax. So I only had him in A tier for that reason.
I initially had Stukov in B tier, but I'm not quite averse to A. I'm okay with Stukov being A. My one consideration was, in the early game, he might get overrun, but then I remember, oh yeah, he has the doodling call down, which you do want maximum mastery points into, by the way, so that at least the period between your first Apocalypse and your first Leviathan, and when you have enough bunkers, can have sufficiently robust defense that you won't be overrun. I guess A is okay for me. Yeah. Maybe not high A, but definitely A. Or acceptably A. Acceptably A. There we go. Moving on, Swann for me is B tier because yes, he has the defense, but his science vessels cost so much gas, and they and the turrets don't quite see far enough that you can destroy the Reanimators. For offense, you will need units. I don't think the factories are able to collect boxes, so you will need units. Maybe wraiths, a wraith hit squad. Doesn't quite hit A for me because he will need to spend money on defense and attention on defense because he will need to see the Void Reanimator. And to do that, he has to tech up 2 science vessels and push them out so that you can see where the Reanimators are. So not A for me, just B. What do you think?
Yeah, I did have him in A tier, but it was more of a tentative A tier, so I'm okay with B as well. It is the science vessels are the main problem. They're not a huge issue for pushing because you can again just move a pack of wraiths through and right-click the boxes, and you'll be fine on that front. But for fighting the hybrid and for clearing the Reanimators, it is a bit of an annoyance. So I'm okay with B.
Okay. B for Swann. He's blonde again this week. Not blonde, blonde. Tychus, where do we have him?
Tychus is another person who has okay detection, but it's not great. The main problem he has is that if you want to be able to split up your army, it's not great detection. But if you're keeping them all in one pack, then suddenly you don't have his greatest asset, which is splitting units in every direction. So you obviously get Sirius out, you have the turrets, those are good detection, but then past that, you're having to get like Nux and Vega. Nux does pretty well on his own. Vega can struggle a little bit sometimes depending on the enemy unit combo you're against. Like if you're against Protoss, then you can take over some powerful units and you'll usually be fine. But like against Zerg, it's like, oh, I took over a Roach. That's not very helpful. So his turrets also notably suck.
So you just suck.
They're like the worst turrets that can hit ground in the game. Obviously, missile turrets are probably worse, Han and Horner. But even with that, he is still Tychus. I think he's still going to be fine. You can just leave Tychus at home with some turrets, and then you medevac platform back a detector when you need. So I had him from A to B tier. I wasn't quite sure. I had him in A, but I could definitely see like B tier.
This is one where we had to deviate a lot from the previous tier list. The previous tier list had Tychus in E tier. Tutu wanted to put him in F tier because he cannot split because the detection sucks for Tychus himself. So Sirius will have to push out on his own, and you will need to rely on your ally for a detector. But in my opinion, the turret at home is still enough for Tychus, especially second prestige Tychus, to hold the ramp for a long enough time, and you do have the grenade available frequently enough that you can burst down when you get surrounded and stuff. I don't think he's quite A, but I think B is fine. The last time they wanted to have an F, but they settled on E. I don't think he's quite that bad. Not even close, because Sirius can push out on his own. And if your ally decides to put any detector on your ramp, then it's laughable to even consider F tier or E tier even. So I think
Oh,
B
and
is.
can I just say,
You
if
can.
you're against a Protoss composition, then he's S tier because you can Vega observers and you have them for like 4 minutes and you just right click them onto the Tychus and walk around the map.
There you go.
So 1 out of 3 races, it's an S tier. You can just go Vega first and rush out her detection. She's a detector, and then Tychus has detection, and it's actually pretty easy. So that'd be my other main pushback. But yeah, I think B is probably good.
B is fine. We can agree on B tier. Vorazun. Vorazun for me is definitely in the not good category. Last time they had him in B tier, I believe, but I have to push back on that because yes, the cloak wall will handle ground-based defense, but the bases that you clear have air, and a lot of the time the attack waves have air. In fact, the enemy comps they added, only one of them don't have air. I think even that one has some air, a la Brood Queens. So they'll just fly straight over your cloak wall and just destroy it. Especially if the enemy is Terran, they'll have science vessels and Ravens, so they will destroy your cloaked wall. So I don't know where they're coming from with the B tier. I think she's really bad, and she takes so long to get online because you have to stick on one base. So where are you gonna get the gas for your Dark Templar? I don't think he's good. She's D tier for me.
Yeah, agreed. I think she's D tier. I'm a Vorazun hater. I'm learning to embrace that fact. So I think yeah, she's not very good. Her main, like the one prestige, right? Your main power is your time stop, and that doesn't particularly help you against your main struggle, which is going to be the Void Reanimators. Yeah, it's good against the hybrid, but those aren't the big issue in this map at this point. So yeah, I'd have her in D tier as well.
No convergence here, or no divergence here. Aside
We
from
could just flip her in Tychus, basically.
actually, that's pretty much what happened. D tier for Vorazun. Zagara, where do you have him?
Zagara does not have stellar detection, but it's not bad. You do have overseers, but she doesn't really have a good air contingent to keep those safe unless you're making corruptors, which is kind of gross that you're doing that. But I guess in theory you could do that. Scourge aren't exactly great for tanking for them. As long as they don't get sniped, though, you'll have enough units to kind of have a pack of Zerglings and Banelings at home and at your natural, and still have enough to do clearing and fighting and things like that. So you could go P1 or P3 here, I think. Zagara obviously would be nice to have for clearing the buildings, and then you can just focus your army at home. With that said, I don't think she's incredible. I had her in B tier.
I think she's terrible. Defense sucks. Her defense really sucks. There's a reason she's not ranked high on minor evac and dead of night mutations, because she can't hold the line. And you have to do that for prolonged periods here. Not against infested, against real armies. I don't think he's good. He's like E for me. Maybe we can move him up to D. I don't think B is acceptable.
Sure, I guess that's fine. I don't know. I think you can kind of just. The thing is, it's not like large groups. It's usually a trickle that you can kind of just A move up and then kill the
Until your
Void
ally clears
Reanimator.
out a base, and then the reanimator revives every single one.
That's true. They still come in a line though, as long as you react quickly. But yeah, I guess I'm fine with D. Why not? She can join the ranks of Han and Horner, who I put in B and ended up in D.
The one thing she will have that might be able to salvage her defense is bile launchers, but they're quite expensive.
Ding.
They're quite expensive, and if you get an acceptable number of them, or even if you have an acceptable number of them, you'll still have to target them to where the attacks are happening, or position your Zerglings such that all of the enemies just go into that spot where they target. And even when you have enough of them, you still have to go on the map with Zerglings. Sometimes they'll reach the areas where you need to get the bosses, sometimes they don't, and that adds to the expensiveness of being a Zagara. That's why I think D is fair. I wanted E, but I guess D is fair. Or do you think C
Yeah, that's fine.
is
Uh,
arguable?
I I think D is fine. If you think she's E and I think she's B, then that, D is a good enough compromise.
Okay, let's put Zagara in D. Zeratul is not D. He has cannons. They are good. He has Demote Dude. It is good. He has observers which have insane vision range, and that is similarly insanely good. S tier. What do you think?
Yep, yeah, he's really good. He's got great detection. You can literally see once you have 3 artifacts, your observers siege up and they cover half the map. So it's pretty great. You can just have those out in front of your bases and get about a year's worth of warning whenever there's a reanimator coming. So it's pretty good. Definitely S tier.
It's mildly embarrassing how much detection he has with the cannons, the
Yeah,
monoliths, the observer. My Donnie. All right,
it's pretty
S
wild.
S tier for Zeratul. Do we have a double S tier?
No, no, I don't think so.
Top of
Maybe Karax, if
S.
anything, but I think you're still struggling a bit. Definitely Karax would be top of S for me.
Not Zeratul?
No, because you have the top bar to help deal with the reanimators, where even if you can see them with Zeratul, you still got to come kill them. Especially if you're going mass cannon, you have to like come back with Zeratul in theory. I guess you could have just like a little ambusher squad. I do think he's second place, and then Stetmann would be third. And then I think Nova's better than Arcturus this week,
Think so.
which is
I had Arcturus in
somewhat
A.
unusual. So yeah, somewhat unusual for her. It's good to see. So yeah, I think that's good.
A tier. Dehaka? Or Kerrigan? Or Abathur?
I think Kerrigan. Yeah, I think Kerrigan.
Then Abathur?
Yeah, and then Dehaka and then Stukov is good. Yep.
Right, good. B, top of B, Tychus?
Tychus or Swann, I think. Yeah.
And then these two who don't quite have the same robust
I
units.
feel like Alarak doesn't deserve to be in the same tier as Swann and Tychus. Can we drop him down to C? Are you okay with that?
I'm happy with that.
I feel like his defense is so much worse than like Swann's. And his clearing is so much worse than Tychus's. Yeah, I think that's probably good. I think he's better than Artanis, at least. You have that, Alarak. You're welcome.
Evil's better than good, confirmed.
I think Han and Horner is probably the best of D tier. Her defense is.
We did say that defense is important, and we're gonna put the worst defense in. Maybe Raynor's
Yeah, I guess.
slightly better, just
Yeah,
because.
Raynor, he has the bunkers and the spider mines and stuff, so that's fine.
And Vorazun
And
does have the cloak wall, which can buy time for her allies.
Yeah.
So is that better than
And
Raynor,
then-
or
I think no, because again, air comp, and then you just become like actually
Sad.
tier at that point, probably. So, yeah, I think that's good how it is.
Zagara bottom? You were arguing for B tier.
I was arguing for B tier with Han and Horner as well, though, so that doesn't mean anything.
Oh my Donnie. So do we have how many S tiers do we have? We have 9 of them, so that's about half. They have combinations of B tier and lower, who together are better than Arcturus on his own.
Well, Tychus with literally anyone else in B tier, right?
Tychus with literally anyone else. Fair. That's fair. How about Swann and
Observers, right click
Zagara?
on Tychus' units, anything like that. Swann and Zagara,
Defense,
yeah, I
offense.
think that would probably work.
Right?
Yeah.
Zagara's weakness is defense. Swann's weakness is offense. So perfect pair. Speaking of Swann and Fenix.
Yep.
Raynor
yeah.
Artanis.
Yeah, Swann with any good aggressive. Swann and Alarak would probably be similar as well.
Raynor Artanis, because Raynor's weakness is detection. Ironically, he has scans, but they cost money. So with the sieged observer, you can just focus your army on not dying, and you can secure expansion, get an actual army, and all that good stuff. Yeah, I think it's pretty good. All right, that's our tier list for this week. Guys, hope you enjoyed that. Thank you for watching. If you have an idea for it also, please leave it in a comment. I will see you guys next time.